Welcome in, friends, to Fantasy Pros, the football podcast. I am Chris Welsh. That's Pat Fitzmaurice, Billy Muzio. We're talking quarterbacks. We're talking tight end ranks. Yes, we're getting into the top 12 of both of those. Are there trustworthy tight ends? We'll see. Are there quarterbacks to stream? We'll see. Just hold on. The episode's coming. You got this all taken care of. Do want to remind you guys, though, with all of the ranks, whether it's these quarterbacks, tight ends, other positions, go to fantasypros.com/rankings. You can check out the ECR, the expert consensus ranks of over 100 rankers across the fantasy football landscape and where these guys are finishing out. And throughout the week, these will change as more people submit their ranks. So you can just kind of keep going back, bookmark the tab, keep going and checking it out where quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, defenses, IDP, we got you covered. Check them out, fantasypros.com/rankings throughout the week. You know, if you can't find us on a podcast, a YouTube, a live stream, our Discord, because we do all those things, we got you covered. All right, Pat, Billy, it's Welsh. Let's go. Let's get to quarterbacks here. Get into the big board. It is top 12 quarterbacks. Hello, Lamar Jackson. You are number 1 for the week. Jaden Daniels coming in at 2. Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love. That's your top 5. Finishing it out, we've got Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Brock Purdy, CJ Stroud down at 11, and Kirk Cousins. That is your top 12. Let's talk a little bit about where these quarterbacks are at. We've done a whole lot of Jaden Daniels, and guess what? It's established. Not only is he top 5, looks like he's going to be top 3 every single week. Let's talk about Billy and I's guy, Brock Purdy. It's been a little messy. After this is, guys leading the league in passing yards at one point. He's one of the most efficient passers out there. We're getting multi-touchdown games, and then things have just kind of fallen apart. There's been inefficiency. By the way, all the guys are back too, except for Christian McCaffrey, and it looks a little messy at times. And he's pushed down here this week to 10. He's going up against division matchup against Seattle. Fitz, you've got him at ECR, but Billy, you're all in. So are you being a homer? Brock Purdy at 5. I'm a 49er fan, but I got to ask because they're asking out there because they're surrounded by 49er memorabilia and pictures on the YouTube video here. Tell us we're not being a homer at Brock Purdy at 5.
This is a little bit of a homer pick, but it's also when you consider the Seahawks and the defense and the zone scheme, they run some of the most zone defense out there, and Brock Purdy's number 1 versus the zone defense. And so I think that it just breaks down to how Brock Purdy can dice up the zone, how the Shanahan can scheme things, and Brock Purdy's yards per attempt and he's being number 1. I think everyone always talks about how overrated Brock Purdy is, but I really truly believe he is underrated in a lot of aspects in football. And so, yes, a little bit of a homer pick, but at the same time, there is the data to support it. And I think that this is a big game for the 49ers receivers and the quarterback himself.
Yeah, Pat, I'm actually a little surprised. Maybe that's like the homerism like rising up in me. Billy's like getting me excited. Like I'm getting all like jacked up about the Niners. But there's a little bit when you also look at like some of the other matchups, like Justin Fields. I know it's against the Raiders, but like he's ranking higher, and they have their wide receivers. They've got the 3 core. By the way, just want to throw out, Juwan Jennings is one of the better separators against zone defenses. Ayuk really does well against man, and Jennings does really well against zone defense. So this might be a Juwan Jennings setup, but you got the 3 wide receivers. You do have Kittle out there. They're run established game division, and I don't know the defensive matchup. This seems like Brock Purdy should be in that top 8-ish range. I think you just have like Josh Allen is pushed down against that Jets matchup, and people don't want to put Brock Purdy above him. So it feels a little bit like some of the names that pushed up are just like stopping points. Like, I can't have Purdy above this guy. But you tell us, though, weapons are there. You've got him at ECR. You're locked and loaded. Do you think Purdy is a really good play this week?
I think he's a pretty good play. So I like him well enough. That's kind of it, Welsh. There are just some guys I like a little bit more. And, like the matchup against Seattle doesn't look great on paper until you consider what Billy just said with the zone and how Purdy does against zone, or when you consider that the Seattle defense actually made Daniel Jones look really good last week when he didn't even have Malik Neighbors. So, and like, look, after leading the league in yards per attempt last year, 9.6, here's Brock Purdy again leading the league in yards per attempt at 8.8 this year, averaging 274.8 passing yards a game, which is really good. And Purdy even adds a little bit of rushing value. He's gone over 30 rushing yards in 2 of his last 3 games. So yeah, I think he's a pretty solid play this week.
A quick question on this. This wasn't on our show sheet. Do you think there's a bit of an overreaction to CJ Stroud pushing down at 11, and it's about Nico? Because if I remember correctly, the Patriots is actually a good team to pass against. I know Gonzalez can kind of have a lockdown, and if that maybe takes Diggs out of the game, that's why Tank Dell would be really well. But do you see this as an overreaction to Nico, or it truly is a matchup that holds CJ Stroud down, Pat?
Maybe it is an overreaction to Nico, because if Joe Mixon isn't back this week, it's not as if the Texans can lean on the running game. So they are going to have to throw, and I'm not going to deflate Stroud too much in the rankings just because he doesn't have Nico. We still got two really good receivers in Diggs and Tank Dell. So I still have him ranked, I think, one spot ahead of Purdy.
I have a hard time ever ranking CJ Stroud low. It's a quirk I have, Billy. I don't know about you. So it's like the same thing with what I just mentioned. Like, is this a Nico overreaction, or is this truly a matchup that CJ Stroud is not a top 10 quarterback?
No, it just also breaks down to the Vegas totals. I mean, this is a 37.5 over under. I mean, Vegas expecting a low scoring game. You're out of weapon. There's a lot of reasons why Stroud has kind of not necessarily fallen in the rankings, but I should say is down in this range. And realistically, there's a lot of good matchups for some quarterbacks who aren't necessarily the best names in football, but they have, high over unders. They got for Vegas totals, they got, good matchups. And so there's 13 people I want to put into the top 11 this week. And it's hard that last tier.
So we'll come to Pat last on this one. But if you're looking for a quarterback that's not in the ECR top 12, I'm going to be able to speak for Billy. I'll let him do his breakdown. But I can tell the quarterback that's not inside the top 12 that Billy probably likes more than anybody else is Geno Smith, because Geno Smith is inside your top 10. So you are over consensus. Technically, I'm not looking at your rank, but you are higher than Geno than the consensus is on CJ Stroud. And that would be a really tough thing for people to stomach, to start Geno Smith over CJ Stroud. I'm not saying you're doing it, because maybe you have Stroud at 9, but sell us on Geno Smith, who has been passing the crap out of the ball. And guess what? 49ers, that is what you can do.
Yeah, it just breaks down to me knowing that the Niners secondary is absolutely trash. And our front kind of saves it at times, but Geno has the mobility to get outside the pocket, extend the plays, and get the ball down the field. Geno's actually quarterback 7 on the year right now. Most people look at him and say, oh, he's a mid-range quarterback too, but he's actually inside the top 7 right now. He has the most pass attempts right now in the NFL, number 1. He is going to be passing the ball. He is not throwing interceptable balls. He's number 1 in passing yards at 1466. So this is a guy that's been getting it done. Completion percentage, we're talking about true completion percentage, 77% right now is number 2. So Geno's kind of throwing lights out right now. And I know that my Niners are going to be vulnerable against the pass. And so, I think this is actually going to be a pretty high scoring game. Vegas total right now, I believe, is at 47.5. I could see the over hitting pretty easily.
All those 30s out there. So, Pat, this is not about Geno. This is about your favorite quarterback that's outside of the top 12 that you are pushing up this week that you would suggest to people.
My favorite outside of the top 12 would probably be, sorry, I have to take a quick look at my rankings here. I think is Caleb top 12? If he's
Caleb
not,
is not, that's a great one to talk about.
Caleb against the Jags, and the Jags are a total pass funnel defense. Like, they're good against the run. They can't stop the pass. Caleb's at home. Maybe built a little bit of momentum with probably his best game to date in week 5. So I like Caleb this week.
All right, let's go talk about tight ends. So we're going to go through the big board of the top 12 tight ends. George Kittle leads the way against Seattle. Trey McBride at 2, Brock Bowers at 3, Jake Ferguson at 4, and Sam Laporta down here at 5. Ferguson's jumped him. Tucker Kraft at 6, followed by Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid, Dallas Goedert, Pat Freiermuth, Isaiah Likely, and Tyler Conklin. Here's one thing I think you can probably tell week in and week out. That top 9 is going to probably just to be a rotational, maybe top 10 because Kelsey's not in there this week, but it's going to be those names. And the new ones, obviously, Tucker Kraft has jumped in there. Brock Bowers has established himself. One of the ones that toes the line, though, is Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts has a game. I don't want to believe it. They said they were going to do it. I need to see it for a couple weeks to feel super consistent, but that's not really necessarily the start and sit game, because how many tight ends did people get to go pick up and have out? If you have Tucker Kraft, you can start Tucker Kraft over Kyle Pitts, but people just have had to throw him out. All of that said, he's ECR 7. Fitz, you have got him at 7. Billy, you've got him a little bit lower. We'll hit that. But Fitz, talk to us about Kyle Pitts. You're comfortable. Did that game give you some reassurance that they said we're going to give him the ball more. They did it. Again, it did take 500 passing yards for him to get a cool game. Can he consistently get games that make us not scream at the wire at tight ends and try to play the Mike Gesicki's and Eric Alls of the world?
Let us not use the word comfortable when talking about the mercurial Kyle Pitts, Welsh. There is no comfort level to speak of here whatsoever. And I think my comfort level this week goes out the window after about 5 or 6 tight ends. And Kyle Pitts is below that threshold. So I have no freaking idea what Kyle Pitts is going to do in any given week. He just had a season high 7 catches for 88 yards last week, but that was in a game where Kirk Cousins threw it 58 times. So he's also had 3 games with 26 or fewer receiving yards. So, yeah, I mean, I've got Pitts ranked just ahead of Pat Freiermuth and Dalton Kincaid, which might be a mistake. But Pitts at least has a pretty good matchup this week. The Panthers have given up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends.
Disaster across the board of the elite tight ends it's been all season, but Kyle Pitts holding on, Billy, for your rankings. He's just holding on to that 12 spot. Is this if he can rattle off a couple more, then he can get back in and he deserves to be in that top 7? Again, this is the weird thing. It's who are you starting over him? You saying he's at 12 is kind of fine. It's really more about rank accuracy than it is I'm starting significant other players over him. But I don't know, maybe you've got a Conklin or a Likely over him right now. But obviously just your take on Kyle Pitts.
I do have Conklin over him.
You do? Okay.
This just breaks down to, I guess, me just wanting to fade Pitts moving forward. I feel like every year I talk myself into believing the tight end position is going to be deep, and then every year I let myself down because the tight end position just becomes a wasteland by week 4 or 3. And you think that Kyle Pitts is probably going to start to be viable and be this option, and every single time we rank him inside the top 7, thinking that this is going to be the week that Kyle Pitts does it. And now I just feel like it's the definition of insanity, and I don't want to keep doing it. So I'm drawing a line in the sand. I'm saying that Kyle Pitts is overrated now, and I'm no longer ranking him inside the top 10. I'm done with it.
But you have to hold that. If he has 3 straight games, are you going to hold on to that? Are you going to keep saying he's overrated if he does 8 for 95 or so? I'm with you on this, but we just it's like a tattoo. It's
Kyle
permanent.
Pitts 3 straight weeks of productivity, I'll eat my hat. Okay. There is no way it's happening.
Those bets have not gone great if you've followed Twitter so far this year. I'm just letting you know. So get some hot sauce for that hat, because how that's been going. One more in here on the tight ends. Obviously, you didn't hear Mark Andrews. You're not going to hear Mark Andrews for quite some time. Even though he started getting involved, it took 50 pass attempts. He was the 2nd in snaps. He wasn't in the red zone. It's a mess. It's a mess over there. But the guy that did jump up as far as ECR goes is Isaiah Likely. He's at 11 here. You guys both are not buying it, though. You've got him outside of the top. You both have him at 17 right now. So my question is please tell me you don't have Mark Andrews above Likely, but is this establishing there's no Ravens tight end you trust because there are 3 that are sharing snaps? They don't pass the ball enough, Billy. So let's hit that. This is kind of a Likely thing, but Andrews versus Likely.
Yeah, I have him at 16 and 17. It's pick your poison, flip a coin. Who knows what's going to happen week to week? If I had to lean, I'm leaning slightly Likely. That we talked about it, on another podcast. But the tightrope surgery with football players and recovering is never a good thing. Mark Andrews has definitely been hindered by this tightrope surgery, and I don't think that we're going to see that form of him, if at all, till maybe late in the season. Definitely not this week. And if it happens, great. Then you flip the coin properly. But I don't think that you can really pick based upon statistics or numbers or mathematical or any analytical decision you can do. The numbers are going to tell you who knows right now with Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews.
Pat, when you did the 17 of Isaiah Likely, I'm going to kind of assume Mark Andrews is hopefully in that same general vicinity, maybe worse. What were the names that you're saying, I would rather do this instead of start a Ravens tight end?
Oh man, yeah. So I've got Andrews at tight end 18. So that's, Conklin, Ertz. Who else is in that range? Yeah, like
Njoku.
Njoku, although I don't know if he's going to play this week.
He ever plays.
But, yeah, so
so Kmet, Freiermuth, Conklin, those are all the guys that are getting the established. Like maybe I'm curious, Taysom Hill. Would you rather play the upside and the donut to upside potential of Taysom Hill or a Ravens tight end?
Like I would rather play Hill. I doubt he plays this week with the fractured ribs. Pretty iffy. I would consider him probably on the wrong side of questionable, but I would play either the Ravens ahead of like Juwan Johnson, but man, like I just likely has not had more than 3 targets in a game since that big week 1 performance that had people throwing like half their fat money at him. So I just like with 3 a target ceiling of 3. And as you said, Welsh, now they're chopping up the tight end targets 3 ways with Charlie Kohler getting involved too. Like, I just don't want any part of that. And by the way, I'm really hoping Kyle Pitts has a couple more big games. I know Billy is an excellent chef.
You want to see him eat his hat?
I just want to see what sort of recipes Billy has.
Would you? Okay, so here's a quick question: would you deep fry? Would you marinate? How would you season your hat, Billy?
You can deep fry anything and eat it. So I think that's the best way to go. I mean, you just beer batter this bad boy, and then you throw it in the deep fryer, and maybe a little bit of sauce on it. Might be pretty good. I mean, I've probably had some worse fried food in my bar life, but this might be up there.
Well, we've done a couple shows here, and I consistently keep wanting to say Billy O. I think that would earn the Billy O moniker if you end up having to eat your deep fried hat. So, friends, if you have something to look forward to, or you have a rooting interest now, it actually might be Kyle Pitts. So there you go. You can find Billy on Twitter at FFMuzio. You got Fitzy. Fitzy, what is what is your Twitter handle?
At Fitz_FF.
I'm just such good friends with him that I don't have to worry about his Twitter because I'll text him and I'll call him and I'll just be like, hey, Pat, I need help to answer these questions so we don't tweet or anything like that.
You have him blocked. We all know it.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have me blocked, you can find me at IsItTheWelsh on Twitter. Thank you guys for hanging out. You guys want more ranks? FantasyPros.com/rankings. Check out those tight end ones. They're a disaster. Plus, but there's kickers, defense, IDP, and obviously the big skill positions. Watch how they adjust all week. And make sure you're locked into our YouTube channel at youtube.com/fantasypros. If people are watching here, make sure you're notified because we have a massive amount of great live streams. We've got weekend start and sit stuff right before the games, and you just don't want to miss any of the shows. For Billy and Pat, I'm Welsh. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Those are the week 6 ranks for quarterbacks and tight ends. Have a fantastic week. Good luck in your matchups, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Fantasy Pros.